Have you ever wondered why some Formula One teams keep showing up to races year after year, even when they're so far back and can barely finish within the points, let alone having any chance of winning? Well, let's put this into perspective. In 2022, the Williams F1 team scored a grand total of 8 points. Just 8. To give you some context, Max Verstappen, that year's champion, racked up 454 points. It's like Williams was playing a different sport altogether. And they're not alone. Haas F1, another backmarker, has never finished higher than 5th in the Constructors' Championship since their debut in 2016. Yet they keep coming back year after year like that friend who always shows up to poker night despite never winning a hand. So what's the deal? Why do these teams keep racing in Formula One despite the odds? Well, you'll be shocked to find out why. First off, there's F1's unique revenue sharing model, which is more lucrative than you might think. In 2023, F1 teams shared a staggering $1.4 billion pot, with projections for 2024 looking even rosier. You might assume that finishing last means going home empty-handed, right? Wrong. Take Haas for instance. Despite finishing the 2023 season in last place, they still pocketed a cool $98 million from the prize pool. But it even gets better. F1 has a little something called Column 1 payments. It's basically a loyalty bonus for teams that have been around for a while. Column 1 payments are made out equally between the top 10 teams in F1 from the last 3 years. In 2021, this meant an extra $36 million per team, regardless of their standing. It's like getting a hefty Christmas bonus just for showing up to work. This financial safety net is why you don't see F1 teams folding as often as you'd expect. Take Williams for example. Once the kings of the track, they had a rough few years. In any other business, they might have gone under. But in F1, they're still in the game, thanks to this clever revenue model. Now you might be wondering, is prize money the only way these teams stay afloat? Not at all. There's something else called sponsorships, which is another lifeblood of F1 teams. Even poor performing teams can attract big names. In 2023, Haas teamed up with MoneyGram in a $20 million annual deal. And Alfa Romeo, the team that finished 9th in the 2023 F1 season, scored a whopping $100 million 3-season deal with crypto gambling firm Stake. But here's where it gets really interesting. These sponsorships aren't just about slapping a logo on a car. They're about associating with the glamour and prestige of F1. It's why you'll see 15 to 20 sponsors per team, each vying for their piece of the F1 pie. And let's not forget about merchandise. From caps to collectibles, F1 fans can't get enough of their favourite team's gear. It's another revenue stream that keeps the wheels turning, even for the teams at the back of the pack. Moving on, another reason why losing F1 teams stay in the sport is the tantalising promise of rule changes. Imagine you're playing a video game that you're not very good at. You're constantly losing to your friends and it's getting frustrating. But then you hear a rumour that the game developers are planning a massive update. Suddenly, there's a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this update will change the game in a way that plays to your strengths. That's exactly how smaller F1 teams feel when they hear about upcoming rule changes. Let's take a trip back to 2009. The F1 world was turned on its head that year, significant rule changes were introduced, and it really shook things up. Everyone expected Ferrari and McLaren to dominate the 2009 season as usual. Instead, it was a white and fluorescent yellow car, leaving everyone in the dust. It was Brawn GP, a team that barely existed a few months before. The team was formed in early 2009 when Ross Brawn took over the Honda Racing F1 team for a single pound. The 2008 season wasn't so good for Honda. They finished 9th out of 11 teams. So when Ross Brawn took over, no one expected any surprises from the new Brawn F1 team. But that wasn't how things played out. You see, Brawn GP had spotted a loophole in the new regulations. They designed a clever device called a double diffuser, which gave them a massive advantage. Suddenly, this underdog team was winning races and eventually took both championships. But it's not always about finding loopholes. Sometimes rule changes are designed specifically to level the playing field. Take the introduction of the budget cap in 2021. For years, big teams like Mercedes and Ferrari could outspend their smaller rivals. However, with the budget cap, everyone had to play with similar resources. Teams like McLaren and Alpine, who had been struggling to keep up, saw this as their chance to close the gap. Even now, teams are looking ahead to future rule changes. There's talk of new engine regulations coming in 2026. Smaller teams are already dreaming about how this might help them. Every time F1 announces new rules, you can almost hear the collective intake of breath from the smaller teams. Their engineers' eyes light up, their strategists start scribbling furiously because they know that in these moments of change, there's a chance, however small, that they might find that magic bullet that catapults them to the front. Now, apart from regulation changes, these underperforming teams always believe they can improve. The journey of improvement in F1 is not just about physical aspects like speed and aerodynamics. It's also about the unseen, the gradual refinement of processes, building a team culture, and accumulating knowledge and experience. Each season, each race, and each lap adds to this reservoir of expertise. Take the evolution of Force India, now Racing Point and Aston Martin for example. They entered the sport in 2008, often struggling at the back. However, year after year, they refined their approach, especially in maximising their limited resources. By the mid-2010s, they were regular point scorers, punching well above their financial weight. For the passionate individuals who make up these struggling teams, the potential for improvement is more than just a possibility, it's a driving force. It's what got the mechanics at Tyrrell out of bed in the morning during their final difficult years in the late 1990s. It's what kept the lights on at Minardi's factory late into the night for 2 decades of fierce independence at the back of the grid. And it's what helps today's smaller teams like Haas or Williams hold their heads high in the paddock despite recent disappointing results. They know that in F1, fortunes can change quickly, and today's backmarker could be tomorrow's dark horse. Another reason why teams like Haas or Sauber are still competing in F1 is that F1 teams are sometimes seen as a long-term investment. Some teams view their participation as a long-term investment, hoping to build value in the team for potential future sales or success. Take Sauber for instance. For years they were the plucky underdogs of F1, often struggling to score points. But the team's founder, Peter Sauber, saw beyond the immediate results. He was building something valuable, brick by brick, race by race. Fast forward to 2016, the team caught the eye of Longbow Finance. They saw the potential in this scrappy outfit and bought a majority stake. Suddenly, Sauber had deeper pockets and brighter prospects. It's like that fixer-upper house getting a major renovation. But the story doesn't end there. In 2026, Audi, the German automotive giant, is set to enter F1. And guess which team they've chosen as their partner? That's right, Sauber. From backmarker to works team for a major manufacturer. Talk about long-term investment paying off. The same goes for the Jordan Grand Prix. Eddie Jordan started his team in 1991, often punching above their weight but rarely troubling the top teams. For 14 years, they persevered through financial struggles and mediocre results, but Eddie was playing the long game. In 2005, he sold the team to Midland Group for a tidy sum. The team then changed hands a few more times, becoming Spiker, then Force India, Racing Point, and now Aston Martin. Each sale added value like a snowball growing as it rolls downhill. Today, Aston Martin is challenging for podiums with a 2-time world champion at the wheel. The team Eddie Jordan built from scratch is now worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Not bad for a team that spent many years at the back of the grid, right? It's not just about selling the team though. Sometimes the long-term investment is about building a platform for future success. Look at Red Bull. When they bought the struggling Jaguar team in 2004, many thought it was just a publicity stunt. But Dietrich Mateschitz, Red Bull's founder, saw it differently. He was investing in the future of his brand. For the first few years, Red Bull was far from the front, but they kept investing, hiring the right people, and building state-of-the-art facilities. It took time, but by 2009, they were winning races. From 2010 to 2013, they dominated the sport, winning 4 consecutive championships. And now, they're back on top again with Max Verstappen. And speaking of Max Verstappen, here are some of his most incredible races that you should see.